All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the August 8th, 2025 Agrobotics Working Group meeting. We'll start off this morning with new membership. However, that being said, I've been looking. I don't think I see anyone who's on our list unless I accidentally have missed them. But if you are here for the first time and you haven't had the chance to introduce yourself, please take the opportunity to do so now.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good morning. So my name is Angelica Velasquez. I am working for the National Research Council, and I was invited to join this meeting by Sandra. Ooh, I don't know how to pronounce her name. My apologies if she's here. So very excited to be in this meeting. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining. All right. In that case, we can just head right on into the presentation for this morning. So everybody, I would like to welcome Chantel Crockett from AAC, the Agriculture Adaptation Council. Chantel, please take it away.
Thanks, Dan, and hello, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your Friday morning, as we always do for this call. But on this lovely August morning, let me just share my screen here. Dan, I can see you. If this is sharing properly, can you give me a thumbs up?
Yes.
Perfect. So this morning, I'm going to be chatting a little bit about an initiative that began in 2023 by the Agricultural Adaptation Council, or AAC, called AgriFood 2050, which is essentially envisioning the future of agriculture and food here in Ontario. Now we'll see if I can, there we go. So a little bit about AAC. We've been around for 30 years now. We are primarily a program delivery partner for OMAFA as well as AAFC, and have delivered recent programs such as the Agritech Innovation Program, Veterinary Incentive Program, or others that you may have seen over the past few years. We really pride ourselves as a not-for-profit organization that serves all of Ontario's agri-food sector. We have over 60 members, which include commodity groups from primary producers up to food processor associations, agribusiness, rural organizations, etc. So we really see ourselves as the foundation in representing the entire value chain, which is kind of how this initiative came about from our board. So the 2050 committee mission, as I mentioned, is to truly catalyze and convene the industry, learn and share on our findings, and implement and act. The value chain is here in Ontario is positioned to successfully adapt to, thrive in, and rapidly evolve into our future that seemingly no one can predict these days. So leveraging our experience on collaboration, drawing on our understanding of innovation, and providing pragmatic solutions for the agri-food industry, AgriFood 2050 was essentially launched as a board initiative and has since grown into the event that we will be hosting in September. So with this, AAC truly sees this as an investment in the process. We have what we call a strategic initiatives fund. So we have the money to really support this initiative and move it forward on behalf of Ontario's agri-food sector. Over the past year and a half, we've been developing a framework that essentially facilitates industry collaboration, providing tools for policy and programs and partnerships. We went forward with a I'll call it a micro foresight exercise, which I'll talk about in the next couple slides, in fall of 2024, that really provided us with a map of future scenarios. We had some predominant agri-food leaders join us in this exercise, and they essentially came up with a optimistic, status quo, and pessimistic scenario for the future. Not only having those folks join us, but other stakeholder recruitment. We've been working with various industry. I'm just going to pause for a sec because someone is talking on the phone.
VFD, yeah.
Sorry about that, Chantel.
No worries.
I was trying to find the profile that it was to mute it, but I couldn't.
All good.
Everybody, please keep in mind to keep your microphones on mute during presentations.
Yeah,
sorry about that. Please go ahead. I tried to get
it. All good. The joys of virtual meetings.
Yeah.
As we're all aware of. So yeah, just to reiterate, our stakeholder recruitment. So not only the folks that were part of our foresight exercise, but also working with various industry organizations and businesses as we approach the event, and getting people on board and excited to be part of the dialogue, which ultimately leaves us with industry collaboration, which is one of our first and most important aspects of this initiative, is bringing everyone together and really breaking down the silos that I find the agri-food industry tends to work in, and everyone acknowledges. And I think it's something that we intend to want to overcome, but hence we're all still here, and hopefully we can work together moving forward. So as I mentioned a little bit more about our foresight working group, with the strategic framework that was put in place by our board, we essentially came up with this lovely image here. So we have validated the scenarios and change drivers that came out of the foresight working group through a pre-event survey. Thank you to anyone who may have completed that in late June, early July. That really helped us develop the focus areas for the event in September, essentially building out our breakout sessions. So I'll speak to that in a little bit. But at the event, we are looking to build those industry working groups. And then the year ahead, the remainder of 2025 and 2026, we'll be looking at using those working groups to implement action plans, reporting back to the industry, and essentially evaluating any changes, challenges, or opportunities that we see. So the foresight exercise did result in the 3 scenarios that I mentioned: an optimistic view, which is essentially best case scenario over the next 25 years, status quo, kind of staying where we are, not good, not bad. However, we recognize that there are some potential challenges upon us. And then pessimistic. No one wants to end up in this scenario. So I think there's encouragement for everyone to go to the betterment. And then just the listing of some foresight working group members. Some of the names might be familiar to you. We did have some representatives from government, U of Guelph, research, processing, producers, etc. So over 6 meetings, the working group identified 10 key change drivers, which, as I mentioned, were further categorized into 5 thematic areas and then prioritized by you, a general you, being the sector representatives through a pre-event survey. These were the results. Through the 5 thematic areas being economic, social factors, environment, technology and innovation, and policy and capacity for change. The change drivers in the black text are what we're going to be focusing on in our breakout sessions. Further to that, and working with our consultant group, we've actually decided to run 4 concurrent breakout sessions on the first 4 areas, as we really found policy and capacity for change aligned under each one of them, and will likely be part of the conversation in each of those breakout sessions. So with that, I would like to invite you to our event happening in September in Niagara Falls. Many of you may already be attending the International Plowing Match in Grassy this week. Niagara Falls is about 20 minutes away from that. This is on the Wednesday, so the day after opening day of the IPM. The IPM is one of our member organizations and was very supportive of us doing this collaborative event with all of the stakeholders being in one area. So the Agri-Food 2050 snapshot of the agenda is in this one-day event. We will be having actually our recently confirmed keynote speaker, Jesse Hirsch, if anyone is familiar. I would describe him as a futurist turned farmer, someone who is not from the sector themselves, but very much interested in navigating change, disruption, and opportunity for the sector. As I mentioned, the morning will include concurrent breakout sessions on the change drivers that I have already mentioned. This will truly be discussion and analysis on those change drivers. We will have lunch. The afternoon will be more for actioning and planning for change. To close out the day, we'll be looking at reflection and next steps and how these will shape the changes to advance an Agri-Food 2050 roadmap together, really honing in on the collaborative piece of this conversation. So I can share the link to registration and additional event details with Dan. I do believe the link is already in our agenda, though, if you scroll down there. So we do hope some of you are able to join us. We truly want an array of representatives of the entire food sector because we don't see this as commodity specific or even individualized spaces amongst the supply chain. It's truly everyone that's involved. Looking ahead to just provide a little bit more insight of what it is that we want to do moving forward is implement some action plans. So from the working groups that will be hopefully established at the event, we're looking to target strategies to address sector priorities and drive tangible change. That change could be as simply as solving a sector-wide issue. This could be a different way to approach government or policies, different ways of utilizing R&D into the future. And then throughout the next year, we're looking at industry reporting and KTTs. So developing somewhat of a dashboard that we can show progress on, exchange knowledge, and support decision-making. And then I think it's important to continually assess the challenges, changes, and opportunities because this is certainly an ever-changing world, and just truly adapt to the future and evolving agri-food landscape. So next steps is this part right now, which is kind of engaging and promoting the sector, sharing our vision, garnering excitement. I will be transparent and say this is an awfully large undertaking during the summer as everyone's taking vacation. So September events promotion has been a bit more challenging for us, but we are looking forward to bringing the sector together on September 17th and then ultimately activating change and collaborate to seek a better tomorrow. So with that, I will stop sharing and kind of open the floor for any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chantel. We did have a question come through in the chat. How much participation are you looking for from OMAFA? This initiative will be of great interest to many different divisions, branches within OMAFA. What is the attendance capacity for the event?
Thank you, Kristen. So the response to your first question is we've been in contact with the minister's office. We have a open invitation for the minister to attend, and it is looking likely that hopefully schedule pending that he'll be joining us. AAC also has a standing meeting with ARIO. I see Nevin's on the call today. And ARIO will be showcasing in our trade show area. So they've been very supportive of this initiative. For the event capacity, we're looking at having anywhere between 120 to 150 attendees. This will just make the breakout sessions more manageable and allow for more two-way conversation in those breakout sessions. Otherwise, facilitating them might become a little bit too overwhelming.
Excellent. Thank you. Nevin, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chantel, for the overview and the presentation. With the Grow Ontario strategy, there was a lot of work put into that strategy with many quantitative targets in terms of GDP growth and expansion of our agri-food industry in the province. To what extent has the Foresight Working Group tapped into that existing body of work and those targets and goals that were set? Just curious to see if there was some synergy or leverage in that work that had been already completed.
For sure. So I will say that it would be reference to the strategy was brought forward during the Foresight Working Group. And I would say that its involvement was light on the side of things. It was acknowledged, as I mentioned, but I think that work was completed pre-COVID, to my knowledge. I think it was a 2019 strategy. That being said, I think through the facilitation and the aftermath post-event, that's something that we would want to look at moving forward. And our consultant groups are very familiar with that work and have acknowledged that. This event we're very much seeking as kind of a step one in the conversation, kind of being reenacted. But certainly don't want to undermine work that's already been done. Our primary goal is to collaborate and not duplicate any of the efforts.
Yeah, yeah, and the other dimension of this, Chantel, for this working group, it represents a lot of public and private investment into new technologies, automation, robotics. It would be really interesting to see if this group could put kind of a view on all of the public and private research going into innovation to get a little better picture. We have probably slices of that view across different institutions, but I know in different work I've undertaken, it's been tough to get an idea of the total R&D investment going into the Ontario agri-food system, and what new directions that is being funneled into. So that would be an idea or a thought that this group might be able to contribute to or provide some perspective.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for that. It is something we've had conversation about, and having the breakout session specifically on technology and innovation, there's been a lot of interest for people from various organizations to participate as our subject matter experts. We are going to be finalizing who the facilitators will be for our breakout sessions next week. And then we'll be seeking a bit of outreach for subject matter experts to join us. Pending the, I think, finalization of the format, we're looking to have a panel discussion back in the main room following the afternoon breakout session. So I think that there's going to be a bit of information that's going to be shared amongst the entire group, coming out of those specific conversations that might shed some light on some holistic work that's being done.
That's great. Thank you.
No problem. Dan, I can see the chat if you want me to just keep going. Thank you, Bridget, for adding in that September 16th event. I will certainly look into it. Is this the same one?
Sorry, I can unmute. And yeah, sorry, we
Yeah.
have a vacuum in the hallway outside our offices. We're
We
both trying
can't
to
hear
keep
it.
our okay, it's immensely loud. Um, but yeah, so I can connect you with them, but they just had reached out to the working group actually to see if we would be interested in being a part of it.
Okay.
But it's the agri-food sector sustainability table talk, and it sounds like a lot of the stuff that they're going to be talking about is similar to what you guys are also talking about. So I will connect you after the meeting with Nikki, the policy analyst at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, who's the one that sent us this info. And then if there is a way, just in case they're bringing anybody else in for that event, maybe they could stay an extra day to be at yours or vice versa.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that leads into Sandra's questions regarding bioenterprise is yes, bioenterprise is also one of our member organizations. So back to that, not wanting to duplicate any work. Bioenterprise's focus was, I'll say, more so primarily on a national level. And we're working with Carla there to see how we can integrate more of an Ontario focus coming out of our event to kind of align with the work that they've already started through their national roundtables work with FCC. And thank you for sharing the report, Janice. Yes, we actually had Dr. Evan Fraser as part of our foresight exercise, and we had hoped to do some future collaboration with the Arrow Food Institute. I believe their annual conference takes place at the end of October. So there might be an opportunity there for us to do some collaboration, perhaps share some findings or provide some additional support for that event as well.
That sounds great. I'll make sure to remind our event coordinator of that of that potential.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent.
Awesome.
We do have a couple of hands up as well in the chat there, Chantel. Brian and David.
Yes. David, you're first on my screen.
Sorry, Brian, I jumped the queue on you. Yeah, David Hobson, University of Guelph. Two things. One, yes, you have a very ambitious agenda for a morning to discuss the many issues to improve the ag sector. You might want to give a bunch of homework out to people before they come so that they have a whole bunch of questions they can think about, collect data and stuff, because that's a lot of material to get through in just a morning. Number two, and I was just having this discussion with somebody else at CFIA yesterday, and it's been a thought that I've been thinking about for a long time, and Nevin will probably be interested in this too, is that I have yet to see an objective assessment of technology adoption in Canada or Ontario trended over time. So in other words, we often talk about whether it's Ontario or Canada that, we need to get better in this area, but we actually don't have a baseline. We don't have objective data on how many farmers are using this, how many people are doing this, how do we compare to other countries that are doing X, Y, and Z. This is not an easy thing to do. And so the idea being that, really each of the provinces and or ideally the country should be assessing, where are we from a technological quotient or a technological score in specific sectors, and use the methodology every year, probably for the next 20 years. Because we're kind of telling stories subjectively in terms of, well, we need to use more precision ag. Well, what precision ag are we using? What is the rest of the world using? Where do we need to go? Do we need to follow them or not? I guess I'm just a big lover of data. And so I even asked OMAFRA about this, and they says, no, we don't have that report. And then I asked Bioenterprise, and they said, well, we don't have that report. And then they said, well, maybe the academics could do it. It says, well, maybe. Like, it's really, what is industry doing? Because you're going to get a bunch of people in there that are opinion leaders, and of course the loudest voice is going to get the most attention. You know, it's like, we need more of this. It's like, well, where are we today? Like objectively, not just in your farm or your local area. And I think if we can get good data on where we are truly in terms of what are we using, not what we're developing, what is the industry using, then we can get a much better idea in terms of where should and can we go. Because part of it is what are we able to do? The other thing is visioning, like where should we go if we put the right resources. So I don't know, maybe somebody's doing this, but I really think if we want ag to become really competitive, we need baselines and we need to trend it over time. We can't just say, give us some money and we're going to put robots in the field. It's like, okay, well, where were robots 5 years ago? Where are they today? Where should we be in 5 years? And where are other countries in this space? And it's a lot of work to do, but then we can work from real data. So my friend,
For sure.
my friend Ainsley Archer calls it the technology quotient. But it's objective assessment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think your hopes are almost as ambitious as my agenda. But yes, I think to your first point is we are having registrants pre-select which breakout groups that they would be most interested in attending. And then further to that, yes, we're anticipating some thoughtful minds to be on site. So we are going to try and organize the breakout sessions to say not only have producers in one category and processors in another, academia in one, etc. We're trying to really mix them up. So there will be a little bit of, I'll say, homework prepared ahead of time, because yes, we are going to have to very much facilitate and accurately time the breakout sessions to have some conducive dialogue take place. Thank you for that, though. I think that's an ambitious yet very important ask of the industry, especially as new advancements continue to come forward. I'm just going to jump back to the chat here quickly to Dr. Rainey. I'm just going to provide a link to our ATII program. The intake is actually closed for it. But that being said, here's some additional information if that might answer your question. And then I can go to Brian, who's next on my screen here.
Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Chantel. I really like seeing 2050. A lot of time we hear about like what's happening in the next 5 years or 2 years, 3 years. So a longer sight line into the future, I think, is really important in the sense of technology. And when I think of adaptation, and I think that longer term, some lessons that I've been learning and opinions I've been building in the past few years around the intersection of technology with ag, it's really made me start to think a lot more about not just the idea of stakeholders in this space developing and getting technology out there that growers and farmers can adopt directly into the current status quo of how we grow plants, but actually looking at how do you change the growing method. And we've seen stuff in the past like center pivot irrigation, and growers in terms of apple orchards have gone with growing walls, sort of a 2D way of doing it, that just improves the efficiency and other aspects of the growing method. So I wonder if that sort of idea of not maybe a paradigm shift overall, but just generally, where technology comes into this space, not only is, if AAC has been looking at not only the idea of what technology has to do and what it has to look like and how to get it adopted better, but also what growers and farmers have to do to modify infrastructure, plant production practices, even the plants themselves. And I know a lot of the major seed companies, breeders, are looking at what kind of traits do you want in the genetics of the plant to make it easier for a robot to harvest that tomato in a greenhouse or asparagus in the field or something. So I just wonder if that did that idea pop up anywhere in any of these meetings? And because I'll just say, whenever I see, Nature Fresh or something pumping in $200 million to put up all kinds of new acreage of greenhouse space, I'm always tempted to comment on the LinkedIn post. I hope when you poured the concrete, you made the doors big enough for the robots of the future, right? I hope you're integrating enough Wi-Fi and infrastructure in there. So is that something that's been on, as part of the discussion?
I'll say that during our foresight exercise, we certainly got into the weeds in conversations such as this. But because we were looking at it at the entirety of the supply chain, more so at a higher level, that would be more, I think, integrated to various aspects of the supply chain instead of just growers, for example. It wasn't a specific conversation, but I think as we continue down this path of work, the working groups themselves, I think this is something that they would consider going forward, because there's so many meticulous aspects throughout it. I mean, we could get into a whole conversation on transportation logistics, and that's just a whole category amongst itself, as you're saying with yours, that impact everyone to an extent. But at this point, no, I think our conversations have been a bit more high level than that.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chantel.
No problem. I have Ainsley next.
Thank you. I don't know if you can see me all right. It's always the suggesting. All right, yeah. So I kind of partly following up, I think, from Brian and a little bit of David. I think this is hugely needed, and it's a welcome conversation for sure. And I appreciate your presentation today on it. I guess what I'm thinking when I hear the word paradigm shift, even though we've shifted past the use of the term paradigm shift, we are, I think that's crucial. Like, one of the things that I think about is, as technology gets more and more embedded in the systems that we use, it changes the way we think of the systems and how we approach even the basic jobs that we do, So, I mean, I don't have to use the example, but 15 years ago or 20 years ago now, nobody knew we needed this little computer in our pockets called a phone, and now we all have one. We depend on it, and our lives would be hugely disrupted if we didn't have it. And I just wonder, as a key component of the meeting, is it going to really look at the system and say, what do we need to help the system change and develop or evolve in terms of even some of the things around that David was saying about ag tech, like how it is coming into not how is it okay, here's a new technology, how does it get adopted, but almost like a pull through, so we're able to recognize those signals as early as we can, and the mechanisms for them to get become part of what everyday agriculture needs. That's kind of some of the discussion. So when I heard you saying we're going to be looking at things at a high level, I'm just wondering, are those types of things going to be part of the discussion?
Yes. So I just saw David write in faster rural broadband. Yes. Part of the conversation that we're really looking to achieve is looking at those futuristic scenarios. Like, are there upcoming technologies that we might not even be aware of? I'm going to go on a little bit of a side quest to respond to you. Is we AAC has been working with a group. I'm going to get their name wrong because I always get it wrong. Cicero, which is a research group that would be part of the Australian OMAFA-esque branch of government. And they did a very similar exercise and have an Agri-Food 2050 report. And part of their breakout sessions, I would say they're about 2 years ahead of us in this process. Part of their breakout sessions is they broke them out sectorally. And in one of them that I'm going to reference was on livestock. They had the working group actually answer prompted questions and then entered those into an AI graphic generator to bring about a picture of the future of livestock in 2050. And to see that, yes, Tennille, I believe that's the one. It was just so eye-opening to see all of the various livestock commodities kind of come together in one picture. And how we get there, I mean, we might never get there. But I think the conversation is we need to be able to adapt. We need to be open-minded. And we need to have a realization that things that are working today are likely not going to work into the future. So how do we move forward with that knowledge? And I think back to perhaps Nevin's comment is there's been investments in R&D that were made 40 years ago that are just coming to fruition today. So how do we prepare ourselves even on a capital side of things for the changes that are going to have to take place into the future? And that's kind of the high level conversations I think that we're going to have at this event. And then, as I mentioned to Brian, is I think the breakdown to the working groups over the next year is where we're going to kind of get those more concrete solutions. And ultimately, I mean, not to make this like very politicized, but the way that policy and programs are developed will likely come about needing change. Sometimes we only think about what's right in front of us and don't necessarily equate what could be impactful moving forward.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks so much. I see Ian has their hand up. I'll say, Ian, if we'll make this the last question for now before we can we'll move on to the remaining items in the agenda. So Ian, please go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to reiterate David's comments in terms of baselines and stuff. I was at a meeting in April with GFO and the OMAFRA field crops team, and one of the GFO people said that 67% of grain farmers have off-farm employment. And I said, well, we need some metadata associated with that. They went back and they thought it was their own survey, but it was actually a Stats Canada survey. And we suggested at that time we really needed, like David is talking about, these baselines just in agriculture in general, but also in the context of what we're trying to do in the working group. That will, you know, if a small farmer are they seeing benefits of maybe going to robotics, or does that shift things to the bigger farms? Like, where are the farms going and how are the people thinking about that? And so maybe that's grain farmers, Christian farmers, OFA and stuff like that. Some of the livestock organizations. I think we need to find a way to get the survey and do these baselines that Dave is talking about, because that'll inform so many people that we as a working group need to connect with and inform, let alone each of us individually here on the call, etc. We don't do a very good job of that in government, but working with the organizations, I think we could put out a really comprehensive survey that wasn't too onerous, and that it would benefit so many people and organizations in terms of it going forward. Because as we talk on this call all the time, the pace of change is not getting any slower.
Mm-hmm. I think just a very quick comment, Dan, and then I'll turn it back over to you is,
Of course.
Ian, I think that's exactly what our hopes are, is that if there's an opportunity to partner, whether it's through the government or the various general farm interest groups, to truly gather information from the siloed commodity groups to have a more holistic understanding of where we stand as a sector here in Ontario specifically. I think technology and innovation is one that, to your point, I think can be answered through a survey. It's just that it hasn't been done yet. And to build that baseline or foundation for this work to continue on, I think is really important. Otherwise, we're just going to continue scattering ourselves and working ourselves too thin. And I think we can really collaborate and come together with some really optimistic, to reference myself, optimistic scenario going into the future. 25 years sometimes sounds like a long ways away, but it's not really. So with that, thank you so much for allowing me to chit chat about our event. And if you're interested, my information is likely out there somewhere, or we shared the QR code or the link is in our agenda. So we hope to see some of you at the event in September and continue some of these conversations. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to present today and for responding to all those great questions and comments. We appreciate it. Okay, so with that, you may have noticed this week the agenda was reordered a little differently. We are trying it just to see if it makes a little more sense this way. So we'll head into the project updates, and I'll pass it over to Bridget for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. And thanks, Chantel, for a great presentation. So just one quick follow-up to last week's meeting that we didn't get to. We had announced a few months ago that Innovation Farms Ontario had been working with the Ontario College of Technology Educators to build a robotics competition for high school age students to start with the goal that in the future we could have something we can adopt for the university college age as well. So we did get the first draft of that competition back from them. So I just put in the agenda for this week, a kind of a broad level overview of the competition. Two things I'll note. So when we were talking with them in comparison to some of the other other robotics competitions that are running in the industry, one of the challenges that the teachers are finding is that it is a pretty high expense to get into a competition. So they were saying like a lot of them, they can only do 1 or 2 different competitions if they're looking at their curriculum because they are pretty expensive. So we tried to keep this a little bit more tailored so that a school that is more rural or more urban, depending on how big they are, that kind of thing, that it's a little bit more flexible for anybody to participate in it, which is why you'll see it's a pretty generic competition for starting. I do think it'll make it a little harder for us as we evolve the competition to make it more transparent and fair across the judging side of things, but that's a lesson I think we'll learn regardless. So I just wanted to throw it out there if anybody had any feedback or wants to be a little bit more involved in the competition or has any questions. There is information on the agenda, but essentially we were looking to have something launch at the fair in September. Students would have the opportunity to work from September to December, and they have to find an industry partner. And as part of finding that industry partners, they either go and do a tour of their facility or they meet with them. And I think it's a minimum of 6 hours of time over that time span to actually figure out what it is that the challenge that they're having. And then the students have to come up with a solution that is ag tech and ag robotics focused to that challenge. What I was looking to hear from the group particularly business owners, is something like this is actually going to be of value to you, or if it would be like this is just one more thing that it's hard to, you know, it's still high school students. So you can get really good high school students, you can get sometimes not so good. So just gonna throw that out to the group to see what your thoughts are.
I'll go. As someone who's had like 50 high school co-ops go through our different companies over the past 5 years, there's always a lot of good ones. There's always that bad one, but it's actually usually the parents that are the problem because they don't understand the severity of it. So if you're looking at it from that objective angle, but the other side is what I have found is, especially like this, I'm just getting my head wrapped around this project. I would be looking at it from the most simple format as well, right? I'd be looking at how can I do it as bootstrapped. So they're doing it bootstrapped because again, if they need to build a solution that's $50,000, that's not going to work, right? So I guess it's more for us, the business owners, to actually be pragmatic and conscious of like these are they're kids, right? They're energetic, they're excited. You need to come in with a project. You have to come in with a bit of an idea. Like it doesn't mean you're giving them the actual idea, right? It's just give them a bit of a structure. But I think it's brilliant. I definitely know of some high schools that would be very interested. Like I know some kids that went through through our company that are heavily invested into getting into robotics, right? So I already know students that would be hands-on ready. So, but for us business owners, if we're partnering, like how much work do we have to put in? As maybe my question back to you.
So I will get more clarity, but from my understanding right now, it's up to 6 hours and or hosting the students at your facility if you have a facility. And that's more kind of going back into getting them in to see what some of the challenges are, because a lot of them may not be exposed to those environments. And then I think there's probably from the January to March timeframe, like a few hours. So I would say 4 to 6 hours where like they say, okay, here's what we're going to propose as our solution. This is what we're working on, that the business owner would kind of give feedback on. From my understanding, that is the extent of it, like the costs for the students to bus to the facility if they're going in person, like that kind of thing would be either on the school board or on the project itself. For this one, we're just looking to do 5 schools to start and try it out as a pilot program. And I will also mention that it would probably be the tech teacher that is the one that's like facilitating the actual communications with the business owner up until the students are a little bit more like they've got a problem, they've got a solution, they've got a little bit more structure to the group, because that's OCTE that's how they work through, is through those tech high school teachers.
Yeah, no, great idea. We can chit chat a little bit if you want. You can pick my brain on that too.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Andrew. David?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. Number one, you may want to look at junior achievement as a model to follow. That works in the high schools and everything. Number two, unfortunately, a lot of this is about sponsored support. So you have to raise money to support it to happen because the board won't get the money. They won't reallocate the money to do it. And so like with junior achievement, companies say we support junior achievement, and then they donate money and they donate people, and then they show up at the school to do the stuff. And so it's all in the school and contained. And another model to follow is there's the electrical vehicle challenge that the high schools do in Ontario. Then they do a competition at University of Waterloo, I think. There's also the first robotics competitions that also happens in high schools as well. But the unfortunate thing is that they all require a budget. So somebody has to donate equipment and or operational funds to get stuff done, because they got to buy parts and sometimes they got to travel and everything else. So I think it's a great idea. I love it. And I wish I did it in high school. It's just one of the biggest challenges is budget.
Thanks, David. And yeah, we I believe First Robotics, there are some people on OCTE's board that are also involved in that already. But I will look into those other two competitions you mentioned. So thank you. All right. In the interest of time, if anyone else does have any feedback, if you have a little bit more time to digest it or read it in the agenda, you can reach out to me after the fact. Dan, did you want me to turn it back over to you for the action items?
If you want, or if you want to keep going, that works too.
I can speak to them just because they came up in last week's meeting, and then I'll turn it back over to you. So,
Okay.
to Dan's point, you notice we rearranged the agenda a little bit, and we'll get to that at the end. So we did have interest expressed at last week's meeting in a policy subcommittee of the working group. So if you were interested in being a part of that, feel free to send us an email so we can get that set up. I also put in just 2 notes. So Garson had requested information from anybody that was going to Agritechnica this year. He was just looking for some industry feedback. Also, I had the wrong robot name last week, so that's why I think Chuck was somebody had mentioned like doesn't make sense. This company should be able to manufacture. I said the wrong name. It was something with an A and I couldn't remember it. So I put in the correct company name, Apelli Robots, for the poultry one in the agenda this week so that if there is anyone interested, you can connect directly with them. So into the roundtable, one of the things that was brought up on the call last week was giving the opportunity, and again, I apologize today, there's not as much time because we did have a pretty good conversation after the presentation, but giving the opportunity for ag tech companies or industry partners or anything to just give a quick shout out. It doesn't have to be a full presentation, but if there's a success or a challenge that you've had this week, and or if you guys have encountered a problem and you're looking for somebody to help you with it, we wanted to give that opportunity for people to speak up in the meeting, and maybe we can connect you with somebody. So I will kind of open the floor to that for folks now. And Dan, you can take over from here.
Sure. Thanks, Bridget. And if there's not, that's okay too. But we want to leave it open week over week, so that we can hopefully facilitate those discussions. Okay. In that case, this is also the roundtable section still. So if you don't have anything specific to that, it's still just the general roundtable as well. Ian, go ahead.
So I had one of my light bulb moments this week. Yesterday, we had the St. Clair Compaction event at Rutherford, northeast of Dresden. And amongst all the big combines and tractors and grain bins and everything else, we had Mark Richards' robot there to run across the sensors and stuff. And my head has always been, all these small robots are great and they're going to fit in where they fit in, etc. But I hadn't really given much thought to the compaction side. And when we put them across the sensors, it was quite surprising how heavy it was and how much pressure was directed into the soil profile. And so, it wasn't way above other things, but it was just intriguing that it wasn't as light as we thought it was. And it's something that we need to talk to robot builders about, is that, compaction is another piece of the puzzle that they need to be thinking about. So in that robotic sense, can we just put bigger tires on it? But then you run into the electric motor problem on the steering, etc. So there's, again, a bit of logistics and complication, but another interesting point to bring forward to companies about.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Ian. Did anybody else have questions, thoughts, queries? We do have the so since we've reordered the agenda, we do still have the same categories: conferences, meetings, field tours, demos, funding announcements and opportunities, as well as other items and articles. But we felt ordering it in this way would give priority and more time to discussion here in the working group, and then because everybody can sort of just see the items on, what are the new upcoming events. Well, you have the agenda, everybody can sort of check that. So we felt this way would give more priority to the active conversations happening. So we hope people agree and like that. Should be a little smoother next week since we won't have to explain what we're doing. But yeah, that's the thought process behind it. Okay. If that is everything, that pretty much brings us to the end of our hour here. So I'll say thank you once again to Chantel for joining us and providing all those great responses and her presentation. Everybody, thanks so much for joining us this week. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next Friday on the 15th.
Thanks, Dan.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.